You ever sit in silence after another failed conversation wondering, what am I doing wrong? Not because you're a bad guy, not because you don't try, but because somehow it still feels like you're being misunderstood. Maybe you give your best, stay honest, stay loyal, but in today's dating world, it feels like that's never enough. You scroll through social media, see men flaunting fake confidence and women praising arc high value men, and you start to wonder if you missed some secret manual on how to be respected. Let's talk about that, man to man. See, the truth is, modern dating has blurred the line between boys and men, not by age, not by money, not even by looks, but by habits. Real men think differently, move differently, and handle life differently. And if you're sitting here thinking you're not good enough, maybe it's not that you're lacking. It's that no one ever showed you the habits that actually matter. Here's something most men don't realize. Being a real man today isn't about dominance. It's about direction. It's about being grounded when the world wants to shake you. And the crazy part? Most men confuse arrogance for confidence and control for maturity, but that's where everything flips. Because while boys chase validation, real men build value. Psychologists call this self-concept integrity, the ability to stay aligned with who you say you are no matter the pressure. And that's rare today. It's rare because it requires facing yourself, not performing for others. It's rare because it means holding yourself accountable even when no one's watching. But if you want to be respected, not just liked, not just tolerated, but truly respected in dating and in life, these 5 habits are where it starts. These habits separate the ones who talk about being real men from the ones who quietly live it. So, as you listen, don't just hear the words, ask yourself, which part of me still needs to grow up? Which part of me needs to stop pretending and start leading? Because at the end of the day, manhood isn't about perfection. It's about progress and the courage to admit where you're still learning. First, accountability over excuses. You ever notice how some men always have a reason things didn't work out, but never a lesson they learned from it? They'll tell you why the job interview went wrong, why the relationship ended, or why people just don't understand them. But deep down, what they're really saying is, I don't want to take responsibility. That's the first dividing line between boys and men. Boys defend their ego. Real men defend their growth. Because here's the truth. Every time you blame someone else, you hand over your power. You give them control of your story. And if life keeps repeating the same patterns, same arguments, same disappointments, it's not bad luck. It's a lack of accountability. See, psychologists say accountability is one of the top signs of emotional maturity. It's not just admitting you messed up. It's the ability to ask, what can I learn from this? That's what separates guilt from growth. Boys hide behind explanations, men look for solutions. Think about it. When was the last time you said, you know what, that was my fault? Not to make yourself feel small, but because you wanted to get better. That's what real men do. They don't play the blame game. They own the scoreboard. And here's the twist. Accountability doesn't make you weaker. It makes you untouchable. Because once you own your mistakes, no one can use them against you. That's real confidence. You stop fearing judgment because you've already faced yourself. Now, let's be honest, it's not easy. Most men grew up in environments that punished mistakes instead of teaching through them, so they learned to hide, to deny, to explain everything away. But that habit keeps you stuck in survival mode. You can't grow from what you won't acknowledge. Real men flip the script. When something goes wrong, they don't say, why is this happening to me? They say, what's this trying to teach me? That's how they evolve, through reflection, not reaction. And in dating, this habit shows instantly. Women don't expect perfection. They expect ownership. They want to feel safe around a man who says, yeah, I made a mistake, and here's what I'm doing about it. That's emotional security. That's leadership. Because here's the truth. When you take accountability, you earn respect. Not just from others, but from yourself. You start trusting your word again. You start believing in your own decisions. And that's where growth begins. So let me ask you this. Are you leading your life or are you explaining it? Because every time you say, it's not my fault, you're telling life you're not in control. But the day you start saying, I'll fix it, everything changes. You move from victim to builder, from boy to man. And remember this, accountability isn't about blaming yourself. It's about freeing yourself. Because until you take responsibility for where you are, you'll never believe you have the power to change where you're going. So If you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. Stop explaining, start evolving, because that's where real strength begins. Not in being flawless, but in being honest. Second, emotional control, not suppression. Let's be honest. Most men were taught to hide their emotions, not manage them. Be strong. Don't cry. Man up. Sound familiar? But here's the twist. Real strength isn't about pretending you don't feel. It's about knowing how to feel without letting those emotions control you. Because the truth is, the men who suppress everything eventually explode. And the men who learn to control it, they lead, they connect, and they last. You ever met someone who looks calm but carries quiet chaos? That's emotional suppression. It's when you bottle everything up just to appear collected. But psychologists say suppression doesn't make you strong, it just delays your reaction. Sooner or later, it all comes out. Anger, distance, burnout. Emotional control, on the other hand, is completely different. It's the ability to pause before reacting. To say, I'm angry, but I'll respond, not attack. That's power. That's maturity. Here's the question. How many relationships have you seen fall apart? Not because of cheating or lies, but because someone couldn't manage their emotions. It's always the same pattern. Hurt turns into silence. Silence turns into resentment. And resentment kills connection. Real men understand this. They don't hide from feelings, they study them. They ask themselves, why did that get to me so much? Why did that word, that look, that silence hit me so hard? Because awareness is what gives you control. Think of emotional control like a muscle. It grows the more you use it. The more you slow down before reacting, the stronger your self-command becomes. And that's not just for dating. That's for leadership, business, and life. Because here's the truth. Emotions are not enemies, they're messengers. Anger tells you something feels unfair. Sadness tells you something mattered. Fear tells you there's something to prepare for. The problem isn't feeling, it's ignoring what those feelings are trying to teach you. And in modern dating, emotional control is magnetic. When a man can handle conflict calmly, it builds trust. It tells people, this man won't fall apart under pressure. That's rare today. That's why it stands out. But let's not sugarcoat it. Control takes practice. It means walking away when your pride wants to prove a point. It means choosing silence over sarcasm. It means not texting out of ego just to win an argument. It's not weakness, it's discipline. And here's what's crazy. When you learn emotional control, you stop fearing emotions in others too. You stop calling women too emotional because you understand the value of emotional honesty. You become a man who listens without needing to fix everything, who understands that empathy isn't submission, it's intelligence. See, boys hide from emotions because they fear being seen. Men embrace them because they know awareness is freedom. When you can stay calm, when everything around you is loud, you become unshakable. That's what makes people trust you. That's what earns respect. So here's the question every man needs to ask himself. Am I mastering my emotions or are they mastering me? Because every decision, every relationship, every level of success depends on that answer. Emotional control doesn't mean you never feel. It means you never lose yourself in the feeling. And that, right there, is what separates strength from survival. Third, consistency is the new confidence. You ever notice how in today's world, everyone talks a good game, but few actually follow through? One week, a guy says he's focused, disciplined, committed, and the next week, he's vanished, distracted, or back at square one. That's the truth about modern masculinity. Most men talk about confidence, but forget that confidence comes from consistency. Because here's the secret no one likes to admit. Confidence isn't built in the mirror, it's built in the moments no one sees. It's built in those quiet, repetitive choices where you prove to yourself that you can be trusted. You want to know why consistency separates men from boys? Because boys rely on motivation. Men rely on discipline. Boys need to feel like it. Men do it anyway. That's what makes real confidence unshakable. It's earned, not performed. Psychologists say that self-trust is the foundation of mental strength. Every time you keep your word to yourself or to others, you strengthen that foundation. But every time you break it, you chip away at your self-belief. That's why inconsistency feels like insecurity. It makes you doubt your own reliability. And here's where most men get it wrong. They chase instant results instead of sustainable habits. They want to impress instead of improve, but real men understand something powerful. Your actions are your reputation. You don't need to talk about being confident when your consistency already shows it. Let that sink in for a second. Confidence without consistency is just noise. You can say all the right things, dress the part, even look successful. But if you don't show up when it matters, people stop believing your words. And worse, you stop believing yourself. So, if you've been struggling with self-doubt lately, here's something to think about. Maybe it's not that you lack confidence. Maybe you've just broken too many promises to yourself. Because real self-esteem doesn't come from what others think. It comes from knowing you'll keep showing up even when it's hard. Consistency is what makes you predictable in the best way. It makes people trust your word, depend on your energy, and believe in your presence. That's why it's magnetic. It creates stability in a world built on chaos. So ask yourself, when people think of me, do they think of someone who shows up or someone who fades when things get uncomfortable? Because real confidence isn't loud, it's quiet, steady, and deeply rooted. And here's the truth. You'll never need to prove your worth when your habits already reflect it. That's what separates the men who inspire respect from the ones still chasing it. 4. Purpose before pleasure. You ever wake up one morning and realize how easy it is to get distracted today? Every app wants your attention. Every scroll gives you a quick hit of validation. Every temptation whispers, you deserve to relax. But here's the problem. Too many men mistake comfort for peace. And that's where the line gets drawn. Boys chase pleasure. Men pursue purpose. See, a boy asks, what feels good right now? A man asks, what's right for me long term? That's the difference. That's what separates movement from momentum. We live in a time where discipline is rare and distractions are everywhere. You can lose entire months just chasing moments that feel good, but never actually move you forward. Psychologists call this dopamine dependency, when your brain gets addicted to quick rewards and starts rejecting real effort. And that's what keeps most men stuck in cycles of laziness, overthinking, or emotional burnout. So let's call it out. Too many men are giving their potential away for short-term pleasure. They waste energy chasing attention instead of direction. They complain about where they are, but spend hours doing things that keep them exactly there. And here's the hard truth. If you don't have a purpose, the world will hand you distractions and call it fun. That's why real men protect their focus like it's gold. They understand that the pleasure will come, but only when the mission is clear. They're not anti-fun, they just know timing. They understand that satisfaction hits different when it's earned, not borrowed. Let's be honest. How many goals have you set that faded the moment something more exciting showed up? That's not lack of potential. That's misplaced energy. The truth is, most men aren't failing because they can't win. They're failing because they keep pausing their mission for comfort. But here's the wake-up call. If you want to feel respected, powerful, and grounded, you need something bigger than pleasure to guide you. Purpose isn't just a career, it's clarity. It's waking up knowing who you are and what matters most. It's having direction when everyone else is drifting. And yes, it's not glamorous. Purpose doesn't always feel good. It's lonely sometimes, it's repetitive. It's filled with moments where you question everything. But that's what builds you. That's what gives you the kind of peace no pleasure can match. Men who live with purpose move differently. They don't chase people, they attract them. They don't seek validation, they create value. Because when you're walking in alignment, the world notices. So if you're listening right now and something in you feels off, maybe it's not depression, maybe it's distraction. Maybe your mind is starving for direction while you're feeding it constant comfort. Here's the truth. Every moment of pleasure you delay for your purpose becomes fuel for your future. And every moment you give in to temporary comfort takes a piece of your potential away. So, brother, wake up. Not in anger, not in shame, but in awareness. Because the world doesn't need another man chasing thrills. It needs men chasing meaning. 5. Respect without expectation. Let's be honest, respect has become a rare language. Everyone wants it, few understand it, and even fewer know how to give it without expecting something back. But here's the truth that separates real men from boys. Boys respect people only when it benefits them. Real men respect people because it reflects who they are. See, the real test of maturity isn't how you treat those who can do something for you. It's how you treat those who can't. Because respect isn't a transaction, it's a principle. It's not earned by flattery, it's built through character. Too many men confuse pride with strength. They think being respected means being feared or obeyed. But that's not respect, that's control. And control never lasts. It fades the moment power shifts. Real respect, though, that's quiet, it's stable. It doesn't demand attention, it naturally commands it. Psychologists often describe respect as a mirror of self-worth. You can't give what you don't have. So when a man lacks respect for others, it usually means he hasn't built enough respect for himself yet. That's why real men stay calm in conflict. That's why they don't raise their voice to prove a point. Their peace speaks louder than their pride. And here's where many fall short. They expect respect instantly, even when they haven't shown consistency, humility, or patience. But life doesn't work that way. You can't demand what you haven't demonstrated. Because respect isn't about being right, it's about being real. Think about it. In dating, in friendships, in family, respect is the one currency that never loses value. You can lose money and recover it, but when you lose respect, everything else collapses. And if you give respect only when you're receiving it, you'll always live in reaction. But when you give it regardless, you lead. That's what men do, they set the tone. So ask yourself, do I respect people for who they are or for what I expect them to give me? Because the moment you learn to separate the two, everything changes. You stop taking things personally, you stop chasing validation, you start finding peace in your own behavior, not in other people's approval. That's the shift from ego to maturity. That's what turns a man from reactive to reliable. So if you're still waiting for others to treat you a certain way before you show up respectfully, remember this. You're letting their behavior decide your standard. And that's not strength. That's surrender. Real men stay grounded even when others lose control because respect isn't a reaction, it's a reflection. So here's the truth most people won't say out loud. Modern dating didn't get harder. Men just got softer about accountability, weaker about focus, and quieter about purpose. And that's not an insult, it's a wake-up call. Because the world keeps changing. But masculinity that's rooted in integrity, discipline, and respect never goes out of style. At the end of the day, being a real man isn't about control, money, or status. It's about emotional steadiness, consistency, and a mindset that says, no matter what happens, I'll lead with character. That's what women feel. That's what people trust. That's what legacy is built on. So here's my challenge to you. Before the day ends, look in the mirror and ask, am I growing or just repeating old patterns? Because you can't call yourself a real man if you keep living like a comfortable boy. Drop your thoughts below. Tell me your experiences. What habits have changed your mindset? I read every comment myself and I'll reach out. Let's talk, man to man. Because this conversation isn't about judgment, it's about evolution.